The listening post floated in the dark between two dying stars, its metal surface scarred by centuries of dust storms and micrometeor strikes. Inside, the alien crew worked in silence, their eyes fixed on glowing screens that tracked the quiet, empty space beyond. It was the most boring assignment in the galaxy until a red warning light began to pulse across the room. At first, no one moved. It had been so long since the sensors had picked up anything in the Forbidden Zone that some thought the system had malfunctioned. But when the lead operator leaned in to check the readings, the cold spike of fear cut through him like a blade. Something had entered the zone, something alive. And more impossible than that, it was moving deeper instead of turning back. Forbidden Zone was not simply empty space. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories in ancient battlefield, where the old powers had fought wars so devastating that the scars were still visible in the fabric of reality. Gravity did not behave normally there. Time could stretch or snap like a rope. And deep within, defenses left behind by the old powers waited to kill anything foolish enough to approach. No ship had ever returned from its core, most never even made it past the first perimeter. For thousands of years, the zone had been silent. Until now. The operator's trembling fingers tapped the console, magnifying the incoming object. The image appeared grainy at first, then sharpened. His eyes widened in disbelief. The ship was human. It made no sense. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage barely a century into faster-than-light travel. They had no business being this far out, let alone heading directly toward the deadliest patch of space in recorded history. Across the listening post, crew members whispered in alarm. One hissed that humans were reckless, that they must have stumbled in by accident. Another shook his head. The ship's course was too precise, too confident. Whatever their reason, the humans weren't lost. They were on a mission. An urgent transmission was sent to the nearest council outpost. Within minutes, the news had spread through the highest levels of galactic leadership, the great chamber of the council spire. Representatives from a dozen species debated furiously. Some demanded that the humans be warned to keep the balance of peace, to avoid waking whatever still slept in the zone. Others argued to let them go if the zone destroyed them. It would remove a dangerous and unpredictable species from the board without firing a single shot. In the shadows above, spies and intelligence officers listened quietly, sending their own coded reports to distant governments. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What could possibly drive a human captain to enter that place? Out in the black, the human ship designation Argus moved with steady, deliberate speed. Its dark hull reflected no light, its engines burning in near-silent bursts. Inside, the crew moved with a strange calm. There was no chatter, no visible fear. The captain stood at the forward observation deck, eyes fixed on the swirling, distorted horizon ahead. The space beyond the glass shimmered unnaturally, as if reality itself were bending. To anyone else, it would be terrifying. To her, it was a path. On her command, the ship accelerated. The first perimeter of the Forbidden Zone was invisible to the eye, but unmistakable on sensors. Ancient detection arrays, older than most of the galaxy's civilizations, still pulsed in the dark. They began to hum as the human ship approached, their dormant systems awakening after millennia. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of listening stations, operators froze as the readings spiked. The zone was alive again, and it was watching. The Argus crossed the threshold, and every old warning protocol lit up in crimson. The alien crew at the original listening post watched the telemetry feed with growing horror. The moment the ship entered, the void ahead began to shift. Clouds of dark matter swirled like ink in water. Fragments of dead ships drifted in unnatural patterns. Radiation flares burned without a source, and through it all, the human vessel threaded forward, adjusting course in ways that suggested they already knew what lay ahead. That was impossible. No one had maps of the interior. No one, unless the stories were true. In the council spire, the argument had turned into open shouting. Some counselors demanded a fleet be dispatched immediately to stop the humans. Others warned that sending ships into the zone was suicide. A few whispered of darker possibilities that perhaps the humans had found technology from the old powers, and if they survived the zone, they could become unstoppable. Every minute, more eyes turned to the holoscreens tracking the Argus's journey. The entire galaxy was watching now. Inside the zone, strange signals began to reach the human ship. At first, they were faint ghostly murmurs in the static. Then they grew sharper, voices speaking in no known language, repeating coordinates that shifted every time they were checked. The crew of the Argus didn't flinch. Their communications officer filtered through the noise with methodical precision. As if this was expected, the captain gave a quiet order, and the ship adjusted course slightly, heading toward something unseen. Then the sensors at the alien listening post lit up with a new warning movement ahead of the humans. For a moment, the display was too chaotic to read. Distortions, shadows, spikes of power readings far beyond modern weapons. Then the shapes became clear. Something was moving toward the human ship. Something big. The operator at the post whispered a curse in his native tongue. He had heard about them, but never thought they were real. The Guardians. Massive, automated war machines left by the old powers to seal the zone from intruders. They were legends even among those who believed in the zone's dangers. Now one was awakening, its immense bulk emerging from the folds of space like a shadow solidifying into steel. It turned, scanning, and locked its weapons onto the Argus. At the alien post, at the Council, across dozens of worlds, the same thought passed silently between millions of minds. The humans would be erased in seconds. No one survived a Guardian. No one ever had. And yet, on the human ship there was no panic, no desperate maneuver to flee. The captain simply stared at the growing shape ahead, her voice calm as she gave a single, chilling command. Hold course. The alien outpost on the edge of the Forbidden Zone was designed for one purpose: to keep everyone out. It was a silent wall of metal and stone, standing between the galaxy's core civilizations and the region of space that every species had been told to fear. Station's defense network could track a single asteroid fragment drifting at 1,000,000 kilometers. Its scanning beams could strip the cloak from any stealth ship. And its guardians, the Zalthar Defense Legion, had never once failed to destroy intruders before they'd even crossed the invisible border. But this time, something was wrong. Their sensors had picked up a ship entering the zone, yet no identification codes matched. It was not one of theirs. And it wasn't like anything they had ever seen before. It was human. The Zalthar commander, Admiral Vikor, watched the holographic display in silence. The ship was moving slowly, almost casually, as if the crew didn't know where they were, or worse, didn't care. It had a dark, sleek hull that reflected almost nothing. No transponder codes. No registration. Its energy signature was wrong, far too quiet for its size. Warships of that scale always gave off a deep, heavy pulse from their reactors. This one was like a shadow gliding through space. The commander leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "Why is it moving like that?" he muttered. No one answered. The crew had never seen anything like it. Inside the human vessel, the mood was entirely different. Captain Elias Gray stood in the middle of the bridge, hands behind his back, staring. At the holographic map, he knew where they were. Every human officer on board did, and yet no one seemed nervous. The crew moved with calm precision, each station manned by officers who had seen far worse than this. To them, the Forbidden Zone wasn't a place to avoid. It was exactly where they wanted to be. Gray's voice was steady when he spoke. "Hold speed. No course corrections." His crew obeyed instantly. It wasn't arrogance, it was confidence. Built on something the rest of the galaxy didn't yet understand, humans didn't believe in impossible zones. They believed in going where no one else dared. The alien outpost made its first move. A deep rumble echoed through the station as the defense grid powered up. Huge turrets shifted, locking onto the human ship. Squadrons of Zalthar fighters began, launching one after another, forming a defensive wall between the intruder and the zone's inner regions. Vikor gave the order without hesitation. Intercept them before they cross the primary boundary. Disable them if possible, destroy them if necessary. His voice carried no fear, not yet. He believed the human ship was simply another reckless smuggler or lost explorer. But that belief would not last long. The fighters screamed across space, closing the distance fast. They sent warning signals, demanding the human ship turn back. No response came. Instead, human vessels' running lights flickered once, almost like a silent acknowledgement, and then it kept moving forward at the same steady pace. That single act sent a ripple of unease through the alien pilots. Every intruder before had either fled or fired back by now. The ship did neither. It simply ignored them, as if they weren't worth noticing. Inside the human bridge, Captain Gray finally gave an order that made his officers glance at one another. "Bring main batteries online. Do not target yet." The ship's systems began to hum. Along the edges of the sleek hull, hidden panels slid open, revealing weapons that were unlike anything in the alien databases. No glowing plasma coils, no oversized missile bays, just long, smooth barrels that seemed to drink in the light around them. The ship's power readings barely changed. To any outside observer, it looked like nothing had happened. But the crew knew that if the order came, those weapons could wipe an entire formation from the stars before they even fired back. The alien fighters reached firing range. The lead pilot, a veteran with hundreds of combat hours, sent one final transmission. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Code 17. Turn back or face destruction." Still, there was no reply. His instinct screamed at him that something wasn't right. He didn't know why, but the human ship felt like it was. Waiting for them to make the first move. Against his better judgment, he opened fire. First volley of plasma bolts never hit. The moment the alien weapons flared to life, the human ship moved. It didn't evade in the traditional sense. It vanished for a fraction of a second, only to reappear kilometers away.
The alien pilots
Were stunned. No ship that size should be able to move like that. Before they could adjust, the human vessel's guns roared, a soundless burst of pure light that cut through space faster than any plasma. 3 fighters were gone in an instant. No explosions, no debris, just empty space where they had been. Panic rippled through the alien formation. They scattered, trying to regroup, but the human ship didn't pursue. It simply kept moving forward, toward the heart of the Forbidden Zone. Admiral Vicor's eyes widened as the data came in. "Hey, what kind of weapons are those?" he demanded. The science officer shook his head. "No match in the archives, Admiral. Energy readings are possible. It's like the rounds skip normal space." That was when Vicor felt the first hint of fear. He had thought the intruder was a nuisance. He realized it was a predator. The human crew said nothing as they crossed the primary boundary. Alarms screamed across the alien outpost. Zone's automated defenses, long-range cannons, missile silos, shield walls, all came online at once. But the human ship didn't flinch. Gray gave a single nod to his weapons officer. "Let them fire first." It was the same principle humans had used for centuries. Never show your full strength until you've seen your enemy's best shot. And the alien defenders were about to show everything they had. The first wave of missiles streaked toward the human vessel, followed by a barrage of plasma fire so thick it turned space into a sea of light. Every alien officer watching the battlefield expected the human ship to be vaporized. But when the light faded, it was still there, untouched. Its shields, if it even had any, hadn't flickered. And now, for the first time, it began to accelerate. The alien defenders realized too late that they weren't facing an intruder to be repelled. They were facing something far worse, a hunter entering their most sacred territory, moving with purpose, and armed with weapons that made even the strongest fleets look powerless. And as the human ship bore down on the heart of the Forbidden Zone, one thought spread through every alien mind watching. Whatever was about to happen here, the galaxy would never be the same again. The alien fleets were gathering now, their ships positioning like predators circling prey. The human ship still hung in the darkness, motionless, almost lazy in its posture, as if it had all the time in the world. To Admiral Koresh of the Valari Dominion, it felt like mockery. Every second that passed without the human ship responding to hails or commands made his blood boil. This was the Forbidden Zone, Any intruder was to be destroyed without hesitation. Yet something deep inside him whispered that this was no ordinary intruder. His officers were reporting strange readings from the vessel's hull energetic spikes, brief flashes of signatures that no Valari database could identify. It was as if the human ship was studying them. The idea made Koresh's scales itch. The hunter was being watched by its prey, and he hated the feeling. Inside the human ship, the crew moved with quiet precision. There was no fear in their movements, no rushed tones over the intercom. Every station was manned by operators who had seen worse than this. Commander Hayes stood on the command deck, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the alien armada forming a semicircle around them. His lips curved into a thin, almost amused smile. The ship's AI had already intercepted dozens of alien signals, translating their encrypted orders with insulting ease. "They think we're cornered," Hayes murmured. The officer beside him, Lieutenant Voss, chuckled darkly. "Then let's make them feel like they're right." For now, the human ship's engines remained idle, but deep within its armored heart. Systems were waking systems, designed for only one purpose. Koresh's voice boomed through the Valari flagship, demanding an immediate surrender from the human vessel. His message was met with silence. Then, without warning, the human ship's running lights flickered to life, its hull markings glowing faintly against the black. It began to move not away from them, but directly toward the heart of the Valari formation. Gasps filled the alien bridge. Ships adjusted their aim, targeting. Sensors locking onto the advancing intruder. It was suicide, they thought. A lone vessel charging a fleet of nearly 50 warships. Even for the reckless humans, it was madness. But Koresh's instincts screamed at him. This was not madness. This was a calculated move, and he did not yet understand the endgame. The first shot came from the Valari Sida, warning blasts meant to cripple the human ship's propulsion. The beam struck, flaring brilliantly against the vessel's hull, and then fizzled out, leaving no visible damage. Koresh froze. That weapon could tear through capital-class armor, yet the human ship hadn't even slowed. Reports flooded and energy dispersal readings were off the charts, as if the human armor was absorbing the attack instead of resisting it. A second shot came from another Valari cruiser, same result. Now the alien crews were nervous, and Koresh felt the shift in the air. Their confidence, so strong minutes ago, was beginning to fray inside the human ship. Hayes gave a single nod. "Weapons, green across the board." Voss checked the readouts. "Green and hungry, sir?" Leaned forward, his voice a quiet order that carried like thunder across the bridge. "Then let's feed them." The human ship's forward. Batteries lit up, streaks of energy cutting through the void with terrifying precision. The first Valari cruiser didn't even have time to deploy countermeasures, for its shields collapsed and its hull erupted in a chain of detonations. The second target suffered the same fate, to clean shots, and the massive warship split apart like paper under a blade.
Ow.
Then the panic began. Koresh shouted for his fleet to scatter, to break formation before they were picked off one by one. But the human ship moved like it was alive, its targeting solutions tracking each alien vessel as if anticipating their every maneuver. The more they tried to run, the more the humans herded them into kill zones. Koresh realized with a sinking dread that they were not the hunters here. They never had been. From the moment the human ship entered the Forbidden Zone, it had been orchestrating this confrontation. And now, the trap was closing. The humans did not speak, did not broadcast threats, did not gloat. They simply acted swift, efficient, devastating. Within minutes, the battle that should have been a decisive Valari victory had turned into a massacre, yet Koresh couldn't bring himself to flee. Something about the way the human ship fought. It wasn't just trying to win. It was sending a message, one the entire galaxy would hear soon enough. The smoke of dying ships drifted in the darkness, illuminated by the burning wreckage that once made up the proud Valari fleet. The human vessel cut through it like a shadow, unharmed, silent, and unstoppable. Every sensor sweep that touched it came back with confusing data. Its mass fluctuated. Its energy readings were unstable, and its shield signature seemed to vanish and reappear at will. To those watching from afar, It looked less like a machine and more like some ancient predator, gliding through the debris as if the battlefield itself belonged to it. The few Valari ships that survived had powered down their weapons and were slowly backing away, unwilling to test their luck any further. But for Admiral Koresh, retreat was no longer an option, not because he didn't want to run, but because the humans had locked onto him. On the bridge of the human vessel, Commander Hayes studied the flagship's profile on the holodisplay. "That's the one giving orders," he said quietly. "Take him, and the rest will scatter." The AI pulsed a confirmation, its voice cool and precise. "Target locked. Defensive countermeasures active." Hayes leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving the image of the Valar flagship. "Make it clean. No need for theatrics. Not yet." At his command, the ship's main battery rotated with mechanical grace, energy surging through the barrel. The bridge lights dimmed for a moment as power was redirected, the hum of the weapon charging filling the air like the low growl of some caged beast. Koresh saw the shift in the human ship's posture and knew what was coming. He ordered every shield generator to maximum output, all power diverted from weapons to defense. "If we fall," he growled to his crew, "the zone falls with us." The human shot came a moment later, just one beam thin and unassuming compared to the Valari's heavy cannons, yet when it struck, it tore through the flagship's shields as though they were mist, cutting into the armor with surgical precision. The entire front section of the ship erupted in flames. Consoles sparked, crew members were thrown to the floor, and Koresh himself was hurled from his command seat, the force of the impact ringing in his skull. Still, he clawed his way back up, refusing to give the humans the satisfaction of seeing him break. But the humans didn't press the kill shot. Instead, the beam ceased, and their ship simply drifted closer, unhurried, as if inspecting its work. Then, without warning, a transmission came through not in Valari language, but in perfectly translated speech. "You guard this place well," the voice said, calm and steady. "But you do not understand it. The zone is not yours to claim." Koresh's heart pounded. The human had just spoken of the zone as if they knew its secrets the Valari had guarded for centuries. "Identify yourself," Koresh roared. The human voice replied without hesitation. "We are from Earth. We came here because we were told never to." That answer chilled Koresh more than any weapon could have in the Valari archives. Earth was barely more than a footnote and insignificant planet, a minor species not worth the effort of diplomacy or war. Yet here they were, wielding power the Valari fleet could not match.
Oh.
And they had entered the Forbidden Zone willingly, not by accident. That meant one thing: whatever lay at the heart of the zone was something the humans had been seeking for. A long time, Hayes let the silence hang, knowing that Valari would stew in their confusion. Then he gave the order to move deeper into the zone. The human ship turned away from the crippled flagship and began to accelerate, ignoring the remaining alien vessels entirely. It was a dismissal, and it stung Koresh like a blade. "Follow them," he ordered, his voice hoarse but unyielding. If the humans were after something hidden inside the zone, he had to see it with his own eyes. But even as his damaged flagship limped after the intruder, a part of him wondered if he was marching straight into a trap, one from which no Valari would return. The deeper they went into the Forbidden Zone, the more the stars themselves seemed to change. Colors shifted in strange ways, as if invisible hands were painting the space around them with unnatural light. Nebulae pulsed in slow rhythms, there. Clouds swirling in deliberate patterns that made the human crew uneasy. Even Commander Hayes, who rarely showed emotion, found himself leaning forward in his seat, staring out into the strange brilliance. His fingers tightened around the armrest, and the faintest crease appeared between his brows. "This isn't just space," he murmured. "Something shaping it." Behind him, the AI's voice lowered a fraction, almost as if mimicking caution. "Spatial metrics unstable. Readings inconsistent with any known star field. This area is alive." Hayes didn't answer, simply ordered more power to sensors and slowed their approach. Whatever they were heading toward, It didn't want to be rushed far behind. Admiral Koresh's battered flagship limped onward, following the human trail like a predator chasing a wounded prey, except it was the prey that had been in control. The entire time, his crew was restless, their eyes flicking to the distorted views outside the viewport. Some whispered that the zone was cursed, others that the shifting light was a warning. Koresh silenced them with a glare. "We do not fear the dark," he said coldly. But inside he knew fear was exactly what this place wanted them to feel. For generations, the Valari had been told to guard the zone without entering its true heart. It had always been an order passed down, unquestioned. Now, with the humans breaking every rule, Koresh was seeing things his ancestors never dared to witness. The human ship's scanners detected something massive ahead, so massive it didn't register as a solid object at first. The AI enhanced the image, and the crew gasped. It was a structure bigger than any station or ship, suspended in the void like a slumbering giant. Its shape was impossible to fully comprehend, part fortress, part organism, part something else. Entirely, portions of it shimmered and faded, as if slipping between dimensions. Hayes studied it with a steady gaze. "There it is," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "The reason no one comes here." The AI offered a quiet confirmation. Energy output surpasses stellar levels. Origin known. Koresh saw it moments later and felt his throat tighten. This was no natural formation. Valari archives contained faint hints of such a thing, a remnant from before the first great empires. A weapon or guardian left behind by something older than the galaxy itself. If the humans gained control of it, the balance of power across all known space would shatter. He sent a coded order to his fleet, prepared to engage at all costs. But before they could act, the zone itself reacted. Waves of light rolled outward. From the structure, distorting space like ripples in water, the human ship shuddered as its shields flared. "We're being scanned," the AI reported. Hayes sat forward, and we're being judged. Every monitor on the bridge flickered, strange symbols scrolling across them faster than the eye could follow. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Then, one by one, the systems came back online, but something had changed. A faint hum filled the air, deep and resonant, vibrating in their bones. Hayes looked toward the looming structure, his voice barely audible. "It knows we're here." The Valari fleet wasn't spared the effect. Their comms sputtered with static. Their weapon systems glitched, and a low pulse echoed through their HULLs. For the first time, Koresh realized that neither side was in control anymore. They were both intruders in something far greater than themselves. And yet, as the light from the structure brightened, human ship continued forward, unafraid, as if this was the moment they had been waiting for all along. The light from the ancient structure intensified until it was no longer something seen. But something felt deep in every nerve. The human crew squinted against the glare, but Hayes kept his eyes open. He wasn't looking at it like a man seeing a threat. He was looking at it like someone recognizing an opportunity. "It's waking up," he said softly. The AI's tone was sharper than ever. Energy surge reaching critical. This is not a passive system, it's activating. Every instinct in a sane pilot's mind would have screamed to turn back, to escape before whatever it was could react.
Ow.
But the humans did not turn back. They simply adjusted their course to approach head-on straight into the unknown. The Valari ships behind them hesitated. Even the most hardened warriors among Koresh's fleet felt their courage thinning. They had come here to corner a single human warship, but now that goal seemed meaningless. Something far older and infinitely more dangerous was taking shape before them. Koresh clenched his fists. His ancestors had sworn to guard the Forbidden Zone, but now, watching this human ship fly into the very heart of it, he realized something. Chilling, they had been guarding the galaxy, not the zone. Whatever was inside this place was never meant to be disturbed. Yet the humans were disturbing it, and they weren't hesitating for a moment. Then it moved. The structure, if it could even be called, that shifted in ways no physical object should. Segments of its surface unfolded like the petals of a mechanical flower, each the size of a city. Energy streamed between them in great arcs, illuminating the void. The crew's monitors displayed power readings so high they went beyond the limits of measurement. The AI's voice wavered for the first time. Unknown technology. Unknown purpose. Probability of survival. Decreasing rapidly. Still, Hayes didn't order a retreat. Instead, he locked onto the central opening now revealed in the core of the objective vast black void that seemed to pull light itself inside. Koresh's second-in-command was pale, her voice shaking. "Admiral, we should leave." Koresh wanted to agree, but something in his pride refused. "If the humans awaken this thing, we must witness it. If they fall, it must not be said that Valari courage failed first." But in truth, he stayed for another reason. He wanted to understand what made humans so fearless. No other species in the galaxy would dare to challenge something like this. And yet, here they were, flying straight into the heart of danger without a single sign of hesitation. The moment the human ship crossed the threshold into that dark opening, the entire zone reacted. Space itself twisted, warping the positions of stars. A shockwave tore through the void, scattering asteroids like dust. Valari's ships spun in chaos, their formations breaking apart. Hayes' ship shuddered violently, alarms screaming across. Every deck but their shields held. Then came the sound door, the vibration. A deep, bone-shaking tone rolled through the hull, as if something vast and ancient had just spoken for the first time in millennia. The AI translated fragments of the sound into a single message: "Who dares?" And then silence. The stars outside the opening vanished, replaced by an endless ocean of darkness, lit by faint, shifting patterns, like constellations rearranging themselves. Something vast moved out there in the black, too big to see fully, too complex to comprehend. Hayes looked out at it with calm determination. "We do," he answered quietly. "We dare." Behind them, Koresh's remaining ships hovered at the threshold, unwilling to follow, but unable to flee. The zone had closed behind the humans, sealing them inside. For the Valari, it was the end of the chase. For the humans, it was only the beginning. Somewhere in the depths of that ancient void, something older than the galaxy itself had just turned its gaze on them and, for the first time in countless ages, it had found something worth paying attention to.